The emergency sirens wailed across the Galactic Council's evacuation ship, Stellar Exodus. Red lights flashed in every corridor as the last of the Xerxian refugees boarded. The planet below them was dying, its atmosphere becoming more toxic by the hour. Ambassador Zrel hurried through the crowded hallway, his 4 arms clutching various belongings. Unlike the other tall, slender Xerxians, Zrel often spent time with the humans on board. He had developed what others called a strange fondness for Earth culture and people. Tanya Miller stood at her communication station, monitoring the evacuation progress. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun as she worked quickly, directing the final shuttle arrivals. When she spotted Ambassador Zrel, she waved him over. "Ambassador, you should be in your quarters," Tanya said. "We're preparing for final departure in 20 minutes." Zrel's skin changed from its normal purple to a worried blue. "Yes, of course. I just needed to make sure all my people were safely aboard." Tanya nodded and returned to her work. She didn't notice the small container hidden under Zrel's lower set of arms, nor the tiny movements inside it. Later, as the Stellar Exodus broke away from Xerxia's orbit, an alarm different from the evacuation siren began to sound. "Attention all personnel," the ship's AI announced in a flat voice. "Unauthorized biological entity detected in diplomatic quarters. Security teams respond immediately." Tanya frowned as she watched armed guards rush past her station toward the ambassador living areas. Her friendship with Zrel made her worry, so she followed at a distance. When she reached Zrel's quarters, she found the door open and several guards inside. The ambassador stood in the center of the room, all 4 of his arms raised in surrender. On a table beside him was a small creature with shimmering scales that changed colors rapidly, showing blues and purples of distress. "This is a violation of evacuation protocols," said the security chief, a tall Draxian with rough, stone-like skin. "Xerxian shimmerlings are classified as pest species and potential disease vectors. They are forbidden on council vessels." "Please," Zrel begged, his skin now pale with fear. "Prism is harmless. I've had him since he was newly hatched. He's the last of his kind from my home region." The security chief shook his head. "The rules are clear. The creature must be ejected immediately." Tanya gasped, drawing attention to herself in the doorway. "You can't just kill it." The Draxian turned to her. "This is not your concern, human. The Council's biosecurity protocols are absolute. This creature carries microbes dangerous to 17 Council species. Not to humans," Tanya said quickly, thinking fast. "Our biology is different." "Irrelevant. The decision is made." The security chief motioned to his team. "Secure the creature for ejection at 600 hours." As the guards carefully placed the frightened shimmerling into a containment box, Tanya backed away and hurried to a quiet corner. She pulled out her personal communicator, not the official ship channels, and sent an urgent message to her friend Jack Reeves aboard the human ship U.S. Horizon, which was observing the evacuation from a safe distance. "Jack, they're going to kill an innocent creature just because of some outdated protocol. I'm sending you images now. It's called a shimmerling. They plan to eject it into space at 600 ship time. Please help if you can." Tanya attached the images she'd quickly captured with her communicator. The small creature looked frightened, its scales constantly shifting between colors like a living rainbow. Its 6 eyes blinked independently of each other, and tiny paws clung to the edge of the container. She sent the message, knowing it was against regulations to contact the human ship about internal council matters. But Tanya couldn't stand by and watch a helpless creature die when she might be able to save it. Now she just had to figure out how to help Zrel get Prism off the Stellar Exodus before morning without getting them all in serious trouble. Jack Reeves was off duty when the message from Tanya arrived. He sat in the recreation room of the U.S. Horizon, playing cards with some fellow crew members. His communicator buzzed, and he excused himself to check it. The images of the small, colorful creature made Jack frown. He immediately stood up and headed for the bridge. The U.S. Horizon was a human exploration vessel assigned to monitor the evacuation of Xerxia from a safe distance. They were under strict orders not to interfere with Council operations. But Jack knew Captain Olivia Carter well enough to think she might help. Captain Carter studied the images on the main screen with narrowed eyes. Her short gray hair framed a face that had seen many space missions, both peaceful and dangerous. "So they're just going to throw this little guy out the airlock?" she asked. Jack nodded. "According to Tanya, it's classified as a pest and potential disease carrier, but it's not harmful to humans." Captain Carter drummed her fingers on the arm of her command chair. "Those Council protocols are too rigid. They were written centuries ago, when they barely understood cross-species biology." She turned to her science officer. "Sam, what do we know about these shimmerlings?" Sam Gordon, a tall man with glasses and a serious expression, quickly searched the ship's database. "Not much in our files, Captain. They're native to Xerxia, have color-changing scales, and were kept as pets by some surgeons despite being officially classified as pests. They're highly adaptable and can survive in various environments." Captain Carter made her decision. "We can't let them kill that creature just because of outdated rules. Contact Tanya. Tell her we'll help, but she'll need to get the shimmerling into an escape pod somehow." Across space on the stellar exodus, Tanya received the message from the Horizon with relief. Now she just needed to figure out how to save Prism. She saw out Ambassador Zrel, who was confined to his quarters until the ship reached the next station, where he would face punishment for smuggling the forbidden pet. "The humans will help us," Tanya whispered. "But we need to get Prism into an escape pod." Zrel's skin brightened slightly with hope. "The guards check on me every hour. Between checks, we might have a chance." They formed a simple plan. At 500 hours, 1 hour before the scheduled ejection, Tanya created a small distraction by accidentally spilling coffee on some communications equipment. While security was distracted by the minor emergency, Zrel slipped out of his quarters with Prism hidden in a small environmental container. The ambassador moved quickly through the less-used corridors of the ship, following Tanya's directions through his communicator. He reached a maintenance bay where small repair pods were kept ready. "I've disabled the launch alert for Pod 6. Tanya's voice came through softly. "You'll have 3 minutes before the system resets." Zrel worked quickly, his 4 hands moving efficiently as he placed Prism in the pod and set the minimum life support systems. The small creature's scales shifted through anxious patterns of yellow and orange. "Be safe, little one," Zrel whispered. "The humans will find you." He launched the pod just as alarms began to sound. New warnings flashed across the ship. Unauthorized pod launch detected. On the bridge, Tanya pretended to be surprised along with everyone else. She watched on her screen as the tiny pod moved away from the ship, heading in the direction of the U.S. Horizon. She sent one final coded message with the pod's exact trajectory. In space, the small pod tumbled slowly, carrying its precious cargo. Inside, Prism's scales shifted to a calm blue as the creature curled up to conserve energy. The life support would only last for 6 hours. Aboard the U.S. Horizon, Captain Carter gave her orders. "Mason, Lisa, prepare the rescue shuttle. Bring that pod in before its life support fails." Lieutenant Commander Mason Grant and Dr. Lisa Ward rushed to the shuttle bay. The rescue mission was on. The rescue shuttle detached from the U.S. Horizon with a gentle push. Inside, Mason Grant sat at the controls while Lisa Ward checked her equipment. They had prepared a small habitat box with air similar to Xerxia's atmosphere. "Target pod is 3 minutes away," Mason said, his eyes on the navigation screen. The shuttle moved smoothly through space, its engines barely making a sound. Lisa looked out the window. "I can see it. That tiny speck there." The escape pod was small, not much bigger than a refrigerator. It tumbled slowly, its emergency lights blinking weakly. Mason carefully matched the shuttle's rotation to the pod's movement. "Ready with the grabber arm," he said, turning on the mechanical arm attached to the shuttle's side. Lisa watched anxiously as Mason guided the arm toward the pod. With gentle precision, he caught the pod and pulled it toward the shuttle's cargo door. "Got it," he announced. Lisa rushed to the cargo area as the pod was brought inside. The shuttle's door closed and the area filled with air. She approached the pod carefully, not wanting to frighten the creature inside. The pod's door was designed for emergency use. Lisa found the release button and pressed it. The door hissed open, revealing a small, curled-up ball of shimmering scales. "Hello there," Lisa said softly. "You're safe now." Prism's 6 eyes opened one by one. The creature uncurled slowly, its scales shifting from defensive gray to curious purple. It made a soft chirping sound. "That's it," Lisa encouraged. "We're friends." She opened the habitat box she had prepared. It contained some soft material for bedding and a small dish of water. Lisa wasn't sure what shimmerlings ate, but she had brought various safe foods to try. Prism sniffed the air, then cautiously moved into the box. Its scales rippled with blue and green colors as it explored its new space. "Mason, we're good to go," Lisa called. "Our new passenger is secure." The shuttle returned to the horizon without any problems. When they arrived, Captain Carter was waiting in the hangar bay with several crew members, including Jack and Sam. Lisa carried the habitat box carefully. As they walked to the ship's science lab, people peeked curiously at the colorful creature inside. In the lab, Lisa had prepared a larger habitat with plants similar to those from Xerxia. Prism seemed to like this space, moving quickly around to explore every corner. "It seems healthy," Lisa told Captain Carter. "Heart rate and breathing are normal for what little we know about its species." Captain Carter nodded. "Good work, but we still have a problem. The Council will notice that pod is missing, and they might scan our ship." Jack spoke up. Tanya sent another message. "The Council thinks the pod malfunctioned and flew into Xerxia's atmosphere. They're not looking for it." Everyone relaxed a little. Sam approached the habitat and watched Prism closely. "Amazing creature," he said. "Look how the colors change when it moves near different people." It was true. When Prism moved close to where Lisa stood, its scales turned a calm blue. Near Sam, they shifted to curious purple. When young Ensign Kelly Rodriguez entered the lab, Prism's scales lit up with bright yellow patterns. "It likes you, Kelly," Lisa observed. Kelly smiled and bent down to look at Prism more closely. "Hello there, little one." To everyone's surprise, Prism made a sound that seemed to mimic Kelly's greeting. Not words, but the rise and fall of her voice. "It's trying to copy you," Sam said with excitement. "Try again." Kelly said hello again, and Prism repeated the sound pattern more clearly. "It's intelligent," Captain Carter said. "Much more than just a pet or pest." Over the next few days, news of the rescued alien spread throughout the ship. Crew members visited the science lab to see Prism, who grew more comfortable around humans. The creature learned to mimic simple sounds and seemed especially drawn to music. Captain Carter recorded all this in her log, noting how Prism's scales would dance with colors whenever someone played music in the lab. She had broken rules to save this creature, but seeing how special it was, she knew she had made the right choice. 1 week after rescuing Prism, the U.S. Horizon received an urgent message from Galactic Council headquarters. The message was direct and unfriendly. "Captain Olivia Carter, you are ordered to report to Council Station 7 immediately to explain your interference in the evacuation of Xerxia." The bridge crew looked at each other with worry. Captain Carter sighed and stood up from her chair. "Well, it seems they found out about our rescue mission," she said. "Set course for Station 7. Jack stepped forward. "Captain, what will happen to Prism?" Captain Carter's face was serious. "I don't know, Jack, but I won't let them take the Shimmerling without a fight." The U.S. Horizon arrived at Station 7 2 days later. The station was a huge structure shaped like a wheel, with 5 long arms extending from the center. Ships from many different alien species were docked at the arms. A small council ship approached and docked with the Horizon. From it emerged 3 council representatives. The leader was High Counselor Vex, a tall being with gray skin and no hair. He was known for his dislike of humans. "Captain Carter," Vex said coldly, "you have broken council law by interfering with the evacuation protocols. Where is the extraction pest you illegally removed from disposal?" Captain Carter stood tall. "The Shimmerling is in our science lab, Counselor, but I should inform you that our studies show it poses no threat to humans or most other species." Vex's face showed no emotion. "That is for the council to decide. Take us to the creature immediately." Captain Carter led the council representatives to the science lab. Inside, Lisa and Kelly were working with Prism, who was now comfortable enough to move outside its habitat when supervised. When the door opened, Prism's scales immediately changed from happy yellow to alarmed red. The creature darted back into its habitat and hid behind some plants. "As you can see," Vex said, "the creature recognizes council authority and shows its true nature, fearful and wild." Lisa stepped forward. "With respect, Counselor, Prism is reacting to what it perceives as a threat. It's quite calm and friendly with us." To demonstrate, Kelly called softly to Prism. After a moment, the Shimmerling peeked out from behind the plants. Its scales slowly shifted from red to a cautious purple as it looked at Kelly. "Come here, Prism," Kelly said gently. "It's okay." Slowly, Prism came out and moved to Kelly's outstretched hand. The creature climbed onto her arm, its scales now showing a mix of blue trust and purple caution. "Impressive," said one of the other council representatives, a female with feathery skin. "But emotional attachment is not evidence of safety." Lisa picked up a data pad. "We've been studying Prism extensively. The so-called pathogens it carries are actually beneficial symbionts. They help clean toxins from its environment." She showed the council representatives detailed scans and test results. "These aren't dangerous at all. They're more like helpful cleaning organisms." Vex looked unimpressed. "Your primitive human science cannot be trusted in matters of galactic biosecurity. The council protocols are clear." Suddenly, Prism jumped from Kelly's arm and moved toward the air vent near the door. Its scales turned bright orange with black spots, a color pattern they had never seen before. The creature made a high-pitched sound and pointed at the vent with one small paw. At first, everyone just stared in confusion. Then Sam rushed to a computer console and checked the ship's sensors. "There's something in the air system," he said with surprise. "Some kind of microscopic particle that our regular sensors didn't catch." Lisa quickly grabbed a more sensitive scanner and aimed it at the vent. The screen showed tiny glowing dots moving through the air. "It's some kind of spore," she said. "Not from our ship. It must have come in with the council shuttle." The council representatives stepped back in alarm. Vex looked from the scanner to Prism with wide eyes. "Impossible," he said. "How could it detect what your sensors missed?" Captain Carter smiled. "It seems our little pest is full of surprises." The discovery of the spores changed everything. The ship's medical team rushed to contain the threat, while Prism watched with all 6 eyes wide open. Its scales now showed a mix of orange alert and blue calm. Dr. Lisa Ward examined the spores under a powerful microscope. "These aren't just any spores. They're from a fungus that grows on dead extraction plant matter. Normally harmless, but in a closed ship environment, they could spread quickly." The female council representative, who introduced herself as Counselor Neri, looked thoughtful. "So the Shimmerling detected an environmental threat before any of our technology could." "Exactly," said Lisa. "Prism's senses are incredibly fine-tuned to detect changes in its environment. That's probably why extraction elites kept them as pets despite the Council's classification." High Counselor Vex was not convinced. "One useful ability doesn't change the fact that this creature carries forbidden organisms." "But we've proven those organisms are beneficial, not harmful," argued Captain Carter. She turned to Sam. "Show them the DNA analysis." Sam brought up a large screen displaying complex patterns of genetic code. "We've been studying Prism's DNA, and we found something remarkable. The Shimmerling doesn't just carry its own genetic code. It carries partial DNA from dozens of exertion species. The council representatives stared at the screen in surprise. Vex stepped closer, his eyes narrowed. "What does this mean?" asked Neri. "It means," said Lisa, "that Shimmerlings are living archives of exertion biodiversity. They carry the genetic memory of many species, some probably now extinct after the planet's destruction." Kelly approached with Prism riding on her shoulder. "They're not pests. They're treasures." Vex's face showed conflict. The Council had strict rules about alien species, especially those from quarantined worlds like Xerxia. But if what the humans said was true, the Shimmerling was more valuable than anyone had realized. "We need to verify these claims," Vex said finally, "and we need to determine if there are any more of these creatures that survived the evacuation." Captain Carter nodded. "We believe there might be. According to our information, several Shimmerlings were ejected from the evacuation ships. Some might still be alive in suspended animation. How would we find them?" asked the third council representative, who had been quiet until now. Sam spoke up. "Prism might be able to help. We've noticed it can sense things at surprising distances. Maybe it can sense others of its kind." The idea seemed to interest everyone. Vex stepped away to consult with his colleagues in private. While they talked, Prism jumped from Kelly's shoulder and moved to a computer console. Its scales flashed with bright colors as it tapped at the screen with a tiny paw. "What's it doing?" asked Neri, watching with curiosity. Sam moved closer. "I think it's trying to communicate." On the screen appeared a simple star map. Prism kept tapping at specific points, making chirping sounds. "It's pointing to locations," Sam realized. "Coordinates in space." Lisa checked the ship's database. "Those are all points along the evacuation route from Xerxia." Prism chirped loudly, its scales now glowing with bright blue determination. The creature looked directly at Captain Carter, then back at the map. "I think it wants us to go to these locations," said Kelly, "to find the other Shimmerlings." The council representatives returned from their discussion. Vex looked at the map, then at Prism, then at Captain Carter. "The council has made a decision," he announced. "Given the new evidence, we will temporarily suspend the classification of the Shimmerling as a dangerous pest. Captain Carter, your ship will be assigned to search for any remaining Shimmerlings along the evacuation route." Captain Carter couldn't hide her smile. "We accept the mission, Counselor." Vex raised a hand. "But a council observer must remain on your ship to monitor the situation. Counselor Neri has volunteered for this position." Neri stepped forward with a gentle smile. "I look forward to learning more about these fascinating creatures." As the council representatives prepared to leave, Prism watched them with all 6 eyes. For a moment, its scales showed a perfect rainbow of colors, like a living jewel. Then it chirped a sound that sounded remarkably like "thank you." The U.S. horizon moved slowly through space, following the path that Prism had shown them. They were now very close to where Xerxia used to be. Only dust and rocks remained of the once beautiful planet. On the bridge, Captain Carter watched the main screen carefully. "Any signs of life pods, Sam?" Sam Gordon studied his instruments. "Nothing yet, Captain. There's a lot of debris out here from the evacuation." In the science lab, Kelly sat with Prism. The Shimmerling had grown more active as they got closer to the first location. Its scales flickered with excited blues and purples. "It knows we're getting close," Kelly told Counselor Neri, who watched with fascination. Neri had adjusted well to life among humans. She seemed genuinely interested in learning more about Prism and often asked questions about Earth and human culture. "The Council has been wrong about many things," Neri admitted. "Our protocols don't allow much room for new discoveries or exceptions." The ship's intercom came to life. "Science team to the bridge," called Captain Carter's voice. "We found something." Kelly placed Prism in a special carrier she had made. It was comfortable and clear, so Prism could see out. They hurried to the bridge together. On the main screen was an image of a small object floating among rocks and dust. It looked like the pod that had carried Prism, but it was damaged. "Life signs?" asked Lisa, who had joined them. Sam shook his head. "Nothing definite. The pod systems are barely working. But there's something strange about the readings." Prism chirped loudly from its carrier, its scales now bright yellow with urgency. It pressed its paws against the clear wall. "Prism seems sure there's something there," said Kelly. Captain Carter made her decision. "Prepare a rescue team. Mason, you'll pilot again. Lisa and Kelly, you'll check for survivors. Counselor Neary, would you like to join the mission?" Neary looked surprised but pleased. "I would be honored, Captain." The rescue shuttle launched 30 minutes later. As they approached the damaged pod, they could see it had been hit by small rocks. Part of its shell was cracked, but it had not broken open completely. Mason carefully brought their shuttle alongside the pod. "I can't dock with it. It's too damaged. We'll need to use spacesuits to reach it." Lisa, Kelly, and Neary put on their suits. With Prism secured in a special pocket in Kelly's suit, they left the shuttle. They floated carefully toward the damaged pod. Up close, they could see that the pod's life support system was still working, but very weakly. Lisa attached a scanner to the outside. "There's definitely something alive in there," she said. "But the readings are strange, like the life form is barely functioning." They worked together to attach a seal around the pod's door. Once it was secure, they could open the door without exposing the inside to space. Kelly went in first, with Prism still in the special pocket. Inside, they found another shimmerling. It was much larger than Prism, with darker scales that barely showed any color. It lay very still, only its slow breathing showing it was alive. "It's in some kind of deep sleep," Lisa said, scanning it, "probably to survive with the low life support." Prism chirped and scratched at the pocket. Kelly carefully let it out inside the sealed area. Prism approached the larger shimmerling slowly, making soft sounds. It touched the bigger creature with one paw. To everyone's surprise, the larger shimmerling scales flickered weakly with blue light. Its eyes remained closed, but it made a tiny sound in response to Prism. "They're communicating," whispered Neary. "Remarkable." Lisa checked her scanner again. "This one is much older than Prism, and look at these readings. Its genetic storage is even more extensive." They carefully moved the older shimmerling to a special container and brought it back to their shuttle. As they headed back to the horizon, Prism stayed close to the container, its scales showing gentle pulses of blue and green. "I think they might be related," Kelly said, "like parent and child." Sam's voice came over the radio. "Team, you need to return quickly. Long-range sensors are detecting a solar flare heading toward your position." Mason increased speed. "Hold on, everyone. This might get bumpy." The rescue shuttle raced back toward the U.S. horizon as the solar flare approached. Inside the shuttle, everyone held tight as Mason pushed the engines to their limits. "ETA 3 minutes," Mason called. "The flare will hit in 4 if we're lucky." Lisa monitored the older shimmerling, who remained in deep sleep. Prism stayed close, its scales showing worried patterns of orange and red. "Hang on," Mason shouted as the shuttle shook. The edge of the solar flare was already affecting them. Captain Carter's voice came through the radio. "We've extended the shields as far as we can. You need to get inside them now." The shuttle flew into the horizon's hangar bay, just as the full force of the solar flare hit. The ship's shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the energy. Inside the hangar, the team rushed the older shimmerling to the science lab. Lisa and the medical team worked quickly to set up a proper habitat with the right atmosphere and temperature. "Its vital signs are improving," Lisa said after an hour. "I think it's going to wake up soon." Prism wouldn't leave the habitat. It sat by the older shimmerling, occasionally making soft chirping sounds. Its scales glowed with gentle blue and green colors. Slowly, the older shimmerling scales began to show more color. First blue, then purple, then a mix of both. Its eyes opened one by one, all six blinking at the strange surroundings. When it saw Prism, the older Shimmerling made a sound like singing. Prism responded with similar sounds. Their scales synchronized, showing the same patterns and colors. "They are definitely communicating," said Sam, who was recording everything. "And I think you're right, Kelly. They seem to be parent and child." Counselor Neary watched with amazement. "In all my years with the Council, I have never seen anything like this. We were so wrong about these creatures." Over the next few days, the older Shimmerling recovered fully. They named it Aurora because of its beautiful scale patterns. Unlike Prism, Aurora seemed more cautious around humans, but it gradually began to trust them. Captain Carter received a message from Galactic Council headquarters. High Counselor Vex appeared on the screen. "Captain, the Council has reviewed your reports and the evidence provided by Counselor Neary. We have made a historic decision. The Shimmerling species has been reclassified as protected. All Council ships are now searching for any remaining specimens." This was wonderful news. The Horizon continued its mission and found 2 more Shimmerlings in suspended animation. With 4 of them now safe on the ship, Lisa made another important discovery. "Aurora is female and carrying eggs," she announced one morning. "The Shimmerlings might be able to reproduce and rebuild their population." 6 months later, Captain Carter stood before the full Galactic Council. Behind her stood Kelly, Lisa, and Jack, with Prism riding on Kelly's shoulder. Aurora and the other Shimmerlings were in a special habitat nearby. "The humans have shown us that our rigid adherence to old protocols can blind us to new truths," said Counselor Neary, who had become the main advocate for the Shimmerlings. "These creatures are not pests but treasures, carrying the genetic heritage of an entire lost world." The Council voted unanimously to establish a Shimmerling Conservation Center on Earth. It would be the first time an alien species was officially placed under human protection. After the ceremony, Kelly stood with Prism in the observation deck of the Council station. They looked out at the stars together. "You know," she said to the small creature, "on Earth we have a saying, 1 person's trash is another person's treasure. Everyone else left you to die, but we humans saw how special you really are." Prism's scales shimmered with happy yellows and peaceful blues. It made a sound that was becoming clearer each day. It sounded very much like "thank you." In the habitat nearby, Aurora watched over her first clutch of eggs. Soon, new Shimmerlings would hatch, born not on Xerxia, but under the care of humans. They would grow up as living bridges between 2 species, proof that compassion could cross the boundaries of worlds.